welcome to the second day of the Booker T. Washington Economic Development Summit. We're going to be focusing on digital marketing today. Again, I'd like to introduce, is it Mr. or Dr., sir?
Doctor.
Okay, Doctor, I suspected it was. Dr. Anthony C. Hood, who's the Director of Civic Innovation at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and he is going to be the moderator for this panel that will be on the need to expand digitally, which will be featuring Erica Jordan Thomas of EJT Consulting, Jermaine Funnyman Johnson, and Teddy Sat Phillips, who's the artist and Microsoft engineer, and Mr. Funnyman Johnson is a comedian, as if you couldn't divine that. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the floor on to Dr. Hood.
Good morning, everybody. I feel pretty hyped up by a keynote speaker. I've heard Mr. Ray speak several times, and he always leaves you with good tips and good energy. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of the Booker T. Washington Summit. Today we're going to talk about the need to expand digitally. And I'm excited about my panelists. I've known Funnyman for a while. Got a chance to talk with Erica this week and meeting Teddy for the first time today. So we're going to dive into this conversation. We're going to talk about digital engagement. You know, I've been looking at the social media feeds of my panelists and just like really excited about what they have to offer. So what I'm going to do actually is ask my panelists if they would go ahead and put their contact information in the chat. Certainly don't want people to get distracted, but I do want to make sure that people get a chance to see how you guys move in the interwebs, because you guys are doing amazing things. I know Funnyman got some merch, so you know he will be excited if you guys go on and copy some swag. So we're going to talk about the importance of digital engagement, and I think that's even more important now in this age of COVID. You know, I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. A lot of people had brick and mortar stores. They were doing retail and they were doing food. But they caught themselves flat-footed when COVID hit, and then we had to go into social distancing measures, which shut down like foot traffic. And so those people who are already positioned to be able to sell their products and services online experience much less disruption than those that had to kind of ramp that effort up. So I like the saying that dig your well before you're thirsty. And I think we're in a world now where that well right now is digital engagement. And just like Mr. Ray said, you want to build a platform such that people can know who you are, what you do, they can get in contact with you, and if you have products and services, then people can access those things. But also along with that is the importance of building a consistent brand and marketing that brand to your audience. So I know my panelists are going to talk about this from a lot of different angles, from education, from comedy. And then I think another thing that goes through what my panelists are going to talk about today is activism, and how the platforms that each one of us are building is allowing us to be able to reach audiences with our activism, and how that activism shows up is different for each and every person. So with that, what I want to do is pitch it over to Erica and have Erica introduce herself and kind of talk about, you know, her approach to digital engagement. So Erica.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you all for the opportunity. Excited to be here, excited to be in community and talk about something that I've learned over time and learned the power of over time. So my name's Erica Jordan Thomas. I am an educator at heart. So I'm a former teacher, assistant principal, instructional coach, and was most recently a principal in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a third-year full-time doctoral student. So I left the principalship 3 years ago and have been in the student seat formally again. So back in school, getting my doctorate in education leadership at Harvard Graduate School of Education, and have been a formal entrepreneur for the past 3 years, launched my consulting business, EJT Consulting, which supports and trains school leaders, works with districts in their equity work, and most recently have started actually supporting and coaching educators and launching their own consulting business. So for me, the tool of social media and marketing, honestly, before I launched my business, for me, it was a tool as a principal to shape the narrative of my school. So I led a school of predominantly Black and brown students. And if you can imagine the narratives about our school in terms of our kids, our community, their ability to learn, and quickly realizing that we had to own our narrative and construct our own narrative, or else we were going to be subject to the narrative that the community and media would portray for us. So that's why I really learned the power of social media is thinking through our public presence of having a strategy of being able to craft what's out in the world about my school, and then have since taken that and applied that into my business.
I love that. And so when you guys hear tweetable moments or something that resonates with you, please put that in the chat. So Erica said we got to shape the narrative, and that is so important because somebody's going to shape the narrative, and if you're not shaping it, somebody's going to shape it for you. So thank you for that. Pitch it over to Jermaine. Jermaine, tell the people who you are for those that may not know. You're on mute, Jermaine. You still on mute.
Everybody hear me now?
Gotcha.
All right, perfect. Jermaine Johnson, known in most public circles as comedian Funny Mane. I've been a comedian for 15 years, since 2005. And my social media business started in 2006 in MySpace. That was my first dive into mixing comedy, business, and social media. So I've definitely seen the transformation of using social spaces to push your business or push your brand. And now we, starting from zero, now we have about a little bit over 700,000 followers or connects, through all the social media channels, the primary ones: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. And from that, we've been able to start a very successful business that revolves around me doing college football recaps on Saturdays, primarily for Alabama and SEC, but we've been able to branch off to other conferences. We've had some great partnerships and contracts with AT&T, with Hibbett, with ESPN, appearances on CBS, and not local CBS. We're talking about the national. We had to fly up to New York, so it's just been great. We run a clothing line from the success of those videos. Run the Ball, BAWL, it's trademark, and it's also available in select Hibbett stores. So we have a distribution deal with Hibbett as of last year. And feels like I'm forgetting something. We're doing well, I'll say that. Oh, but I forgot the tour part, the comedy part. So we're able to engage with the audience live because of the comedy. So if they watch the videos and they buy the merch, then people want to touch you. They want to see you. So the past 2 years, we've sold out venues from LA to New York, Las Vegas, Nashville, here in Birmingham. So that's what we've been doing. And then I've always been sort of an activist, but my activism was through mentorship and hosting civic programs. I was probably the go-to host of the past 2 mayors here in Birmingham, for doing their different events. And so we took a more radical stance this summer, when the neo civil rights movement, as we call it in our world, kind of took off. So instead of run the ball, we switched it to run the race. So now we're just running the race for equality, justice, and we're encouraging people to use their voice for change. But social media is very important, not only for business, but for connections and for social change.
Yeah, I love that. So much I want to come back to on that. But I'm going to let Teddy jump in. And Teddy Stat Phillips, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me on the panel. Teddy Stat Phillips, I'm an artist, and I'm also an engineer at Microsoft. So social media, still learning it. Still trying to figure out how far I can reach and understanding how to connect with my audience. So this year I started a career as publicly started a career as an artist. And I just started releasing images of powerful images of people that I admired and things that connected with me growing up. And once everything started happening, I wanted to put out powerful images that not only spoke to the victims that were brutally murdered by cops. I wanted to create an action to demand justice for these people. So I put out George Floyd, I did Ahmaud Arbery, and I did Breonna Taylor, and they ended up taking off. So I ended up getting probably about 14,000 followers within like over a weekend. And just understanding my audience and understanding the responsibility that I had to them was to educate them, which were primarily white allies that wanted to figure out how to come in and make change and benefit and try to change the narrative for not only them and educate their community. So I took on that responsibility of saying, here's what's going on, here's how you can help, and here's some helpful resources. So social media is super powerful and great platform, and it's something that I'm still figuring it out, but I want to actually do more.
So I want to stay there for a minute. And, you know, again, I don't want y'all to get too distracted, man, but y'all need to go to Stat the Artist Instagram page and just look at the beauty of this work. Because, I mean, I just haven't seen stuff like this before. So, like, you legit, like, made this? Like, is this, like, computer generated? Like, what's the process behind doing this?
Yeah, it's computer generated. So I look at an image that might come across news. I vectorize it. And then I throw colorful color palette behind it to draw attention. Because like Ramon was saying, like you want to draw attention. You want people to stop on the timeline, right? And you want to focus on whoever you're trying to bring justice for. And that's kind of like how I developed my style with that.
That's what's up. So you mentioned that you picked up like 12,000 followers like over a weekend. So
Yeah.
like once that happened, like I'm sure that was a little bit overwhelming. And then what did you do after that? Like, did you realize like, okay, now I have a community. Now what do I need to do with this community? Like, what was your thought process behind it?
Yeah, so my thought process with that is like, okay, keep doing what set everything off and went viral, right? You have an audience, that's what your audience is built towards, and this is the content that's working for your platform, and you're directing people to resources so that you can actually get justice for these people. So there's call to actions that I've realized that I need to place behind a lot of the images. Don't come out with the image, come out with actions that people can actually do to help bring justice, whether it's calling the attorney general, whether it's calling the mayor, whether it's calling the police chief to enact justice for these people and their families. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so it's primarily education through art and awareness.
Mm-hmm. So I want to throw out a broader conversation for all of us. You know, one of the questions I get a lot of time is, how do you separate your personal brand from your professional brand? So Teddy, I know you still have a day job, right? You at Microsoft. Maybe some of the positions you might take, you know, I think sometimes we think like, man, how is this going to impact my career if I take a certain position? Some people say, well, I just got a private Facebook page. I don't even have my real name associated with it. That's just my page that I lurk on my ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, or what have you. So Erica, like, how do you approach that, you know, having your personal brand? Do you make a distinction between the two? What's your approach to that?
Yeah, so I personally do not. That is my personal choice. So one of my core values is authenticity. And I just believe that being two separate people is exhausting. I also have had the professional experience of not being able to fully show up as who I am, that has led me to making some intentional choices professionally to ensure that I don't have to be two separate people. So I realize that that's a privilege, and not everybody has that privilege. So for me, they are both the same, one and the same, my personal brand and my business brand. And I think part of that comes from I'm my business's greatest asset. And so being able to leverage, I'm not only an educator, I was a former principal, I happen to be a doctoral candidate, and I'm also an entrepreneur, and I also happen to be a Black woman. And so being able to intersect all of those identities, the reality is that for me, I find it to be powerful, as well as a part of, honestly, my marketing strategy, that many people who are in my space are white men. And so for me, I see there actually being a benefit of overlapping my personal and my professional brand, which means that there's some strategic choices, right? So there are certain things I don't post on my social media in terms of my personal life. And I personally am okay with that. But then there are some things that I do post about my personal life because and I can always connect it back to something that I want to be true for my client. And so I would want my client to know that they can go to a Beyonce concert and still own a business. Like they could drop a Meek Mill in the caption and still own a business and still be getting like a PhD. And so for me, I see it as a tool of privilege and power to actually intersect both of my personal and my professional brand, but also understanding that my business model is unique, where I'm a consulting business. I'm not a product-based business, I'm a service-based business, and I am the principal consultant in my business, as well as, I'm in school right now. So, you can lose me if you want to, you can get rid of me, but actually that's your loss if you decide, what I say is offensive, but what I'm saying is actually centering my freedom and my humanity. And if you have an issue with that, then that's a bigger conversation. So I acknowledge that, I have some principles that are unique to me that for others businesses, it may not align.
If you're like me, people always say, you don't look like a professor. Like, well, what is a professor supposed to look like? Like, I still like trap music and lemon pepper wings, you know what I mean? Like, but I'm just a person.
Listen, and I think it's important for people to see that, right? So part of our society and our culture says that in order for you to have this type of status, for you to have this type of position, you can't do this. And at the end of the day, it's oppressive. It's white supremacy culture. It's centering a narrative of whiteness, of how proximate you are to whiteness determines how successful you can be. So part of actually the resistance is actually me being my personal brand, actually being my business brand. And so that's one of the ways of my personal activism, is actually fully showing up as myself and being the same person I am in my business as I am in my personal life.
Right. Yeah. Jermaine, what you're such a public person, like there's probably no parts of your life that you can be hidden. Like, so authenticity, I'm sure, is everything to you, right?
Yeah, she made some excellent points, and I think it comes down to your personal situation. I do have business accounts with the blue checks, and then I have my personal accounts, but my audience is different. Because it's college football, I've inherited a majority white, conservative, deeply Southern, some Trump-loving base, but we can work it out, for business purposes. But at first, when I started and I tried to still be my personal self, it wasn't that it was backlash. They just didn't get the reference. Like, when I remember I responded to a tweet one time about cable, and I was like, I told Mama I'm thugging outside, I don't need cable. And they was like, what are you talking about? So it's just some cultural stuff that they didn't get. And then still to this day, I'll put my activism stuff to them because they need to know, though that's the audience that needs to know what defund the police means, what Black Lives Matter means. So I'll definitely do that. But if it comes to me posting like a personal picture of me hanging with my lady or something like that, I just choose to take it to my personal accounts where I know it's friends, people I went to school with. And, for business purposes, they don't need to see that. I feel like we could talk about sports and I can give them some education. But again, that's my personal choice. And I like to think, Sam Walton probably wouldn't tweet from the Walmart account. So, you could separate them. But I think she's very much right when you know your audience. If your personal life and your struggles, especially as a Black woman, if you know that's going to resonate with your audience and it's going to be good for business, I 100% think that you should put it out there. But for me, it's just personal because they don't always get it.
I got you. And real quick, the blue check. So I see a lot of people on posts online like, man, how does one get the certified blue? What does the blue check mean? And then how does one get it?
Say I missed that last part.
And how does one get it? What is it and how do you get it?
Every one that I got was different. Twitter seemed to be the easiest. I got that one years ago. I literally just asked for it. You know, like I think I mentioned it's called Verified Twitter. Actually, it's a handle. And a few years ago, you know, I just mentioned them. They sent me a message, fill out this form, and boom, I got it like within an hour. Facebook was a lot more difficult. Facebook, I had done everything. Like my videos were averaging 2 million viewers per week. We got some videos that had done over 10 million. And I was like, yo, what's up? Like I'm actually doing it. And then I was purchasing ads for my shows, and they just, you know, they kept making me fill out this form to turn in my license to make sure it's me. I'm like, y'all know it's me. And I don't know what changed. One day I just woke up and they gave it to me. Instagram, the toughest. I still don't know. I've got a theory, but I still don't know. They have a form where you could fill it out and request verification. I did that maybe 3 times. And because of the headache through Facebook, I was like, look, I'm not doing this no more. And then I got into a TMZ situation by making a mistake. And I had all these visitors coming to my page. I think I had like 1.2 million people that had visited my page. And I literally woke up the next day and they gave me a blue check. So I don't know. Maybe it was the incident. Maybe I have no idea. But I would encourage anybody that they have a form that you can fill out. So I would say just keep asking would be my advice. But I don't know.
And just real quick, for those that might not even know what that means, like what is the blue check and what does that give you? Like, is it just really like a badge of legitimacy? Right. You know, did it change your life after you got it? And, you know,
no, it's called a verification check. It just means that you're a legit business or you're a legit personality or congressperson. It is very helpful as far as marketing. It does legitimize you even more. You could be legit. There's plenty of legit accounts without the blue check, but that just legitimizes you. And I think that's the reason that they make it so exclusive. You know, they keep that exclusivity about it because, you know, if you only give it to a few people, then it has value. If everybody got a blue check, it would lose all of its value. So it does help with marketing. It helps with branding and it helps with trust, especially if you're going to be selling to people. So it's important. It is important in the social media spaces.
That's what's up. And Teddy, same question for you. Like, so how do you balance, you know, the work that you do for your day job, but then you have this other thing that's going on inside like this? Does your employer encourage you now that you're doing this stuff, or is it something that just kind of has a side hustle?
Yeah. So a lot of my coworkers follow me. A lot of my VPs follow me and things like that. So just selecting to work at Microsoft, it was between Microsoft and Amazon. I think Amazon is a great company, but I think Microsoft shared my core values of diversity and inclusion and allowing people to come in and be themselves and saying, look, I think I was wearing college shirts and everything like that. And then my manager saw me outside of work. He said, like, oh, I thought you were this preppy guy and things like that. I said, nah, man, I'm just chilling and stuff like that. He said, you can come in and work like that. So just embracing me as I am and things like that. And just when everything started happening and people started figuring out that I had this art page and thing, and that my VP, who has Black Lives Matter as his Facebook avatar, reached out. He said, "Nah, man, I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. And I'm proud that you're a part of our division." So it's pretty huge. I did a Sounders video. They aired it at our all hands for our entire department. And then I was recently on the cover of Seattle Magazine, and people were sending me copies, asking me to sign it. So I feel really supported at work, being myself, and kind of like how Erica said, just showing up as you are.
Yeah.
So
That's what's up, man. So we had a question in the Q&A, and I encourage you guys, if you have questions, go ahead and post those questions because we can get to them. So there was a question about what do we think about cancel culture? How do we get around it or what have you? And Jermaine, you had mentioned an incident, and maybe you want to speak on that. But one of the things that I hear from people is they have a lot of reluctance to be too visible online because they're afraid that if I make that mistake, if I make that wrong comment, that wrong post, then this is going to ruin my career. People want to counsel everybody now, like you made one mistake and it's like your career is done. So, what's your thoughts around that? Like, do you think cancel culture has gotten out of control, number one, and number two, like, how do you navigate it?
That's for me.
That's anybody, but
okay. I'll say this, and I've learned to navigate the cancel culture waters. If what you're about to say or tweet or post, if it's for the betterment of the community, you've got the receipts because you well researched it and your heart is in the right place, say it, tweet it, double down on it, triple down on it, quadruple, don't hold your ground. That's how you defeat cancel culture, because cancel culture wants you to come in and apologize and back up and, show you but when you stand your ground, they move on. So if like I said, if that your heart is in the right place and you've got the receipts and the research behind it, say it and stand by it.
Yeah, because it feels like people sometimes are just waiting on you to make a mistake. They're like, gotcha. And so I think that does cause people be a little bit more reluctant.
No, I second what Jermaine said. Just having a public persona and just having things, people are going to come after you for little things, minute things, and they're going to blow them up to make it seem like they're bigger than what they are. And they can create a nasty rumor or a nasty narrative about you, but it's up to you to stand your ground. And basically, if it's something that you stand behind, you have to own it, right? Everyone's art process looks different, right? As a lot of artists grow, they grow out studios. They have people that they come up with the original idea. And in order to scale out for like a huge show, they're going to have to hire assistants to come in and have to hire them to help them to keep their process going and to scale up and to meet all of these demands. So with the art process of Kende Wiley, who did the beautiful Obama painting, right? He has a studio in China that he outsourced to. Things like that. And I think what a lot of artists and what I had to learn is like, if you want to keep your name going, if you want to keep content coming out, kind of like if you want to be able to post every day and stuff like that, you're going to have to figure out how to have that studio model so you can grow and you can build something like that. And that's something that I'm embracing now.
Right. And you also mentioned the team, Ted, and that's something I want to make sure we talk about as well. Erica, you got this consulting business that you're building out. Like, is it all just you right now, or do you have other team members that you bring on for like depending on the contract, and how are you thinking about scaling and expanding this while also trying to write a dissertation and everything else that you're doing?
Yeah, one quick piece just to add to that last question, and then I'll answer your question. So I would just name that I wonder to what extent some of us as coming from a racially oppressed background, so Black people, use cancel culture as a way for us to continue to play small. And so I just want to throw out that thought that I think sometimes our fears around what will happen when I actually play big and take up space, we actually give more energy to the small possibility of us being quote unquote canceled. And actually there are some people I'm okay with being canceled by, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But just naming that, I think sometimes we actually lean into a narrative of fear that is a result of internalized oppression that will continue to lead us to playing small when actually we're meant to play really big. So I would just name that just as a thought related to the cancel culture question, and co-sign what Teddy and Jermaine said. To answer your question, so I have 2 contractors right now. I have a virtual assistant and I have a bookkeeper, and actually in the process of also getting a social media manager. So I've been a one-woman show for 2 of the 3 years of my business, just like honestly a side hustle, and now growing and scaling my business. I have a 6-figure business and actually growing to multiple, looking to grow and scale in that way. I think your question was, just to make sure I'm answering it, is how I'm thinking about scaling.
Yeah, like as you continue to build your team out, like what are your thoughts around as you bring people on? Because, that is an expense, but, that's an expense that helps you to be more productive and to be more profitable. So I know a lot of people, when they're thinking about building out their digital business, you try to skip on it. People would just want to find their 16-year-old niece because she's on TikTok. And you assume that she's a social media expert and she can manage your page, but really respecting the professionalism of building a brand. And so I just want you to kind of speak.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think a little bit what's underneath your question is really the mindset work that you have to go through as an entrepreneur, and the consistent mindset work. And a part of that mindset work is honestly around money. So I will speak for myself of my own cultural experience with money. I grew up in a culture within my family where we did not talk about money. It was rude to ask someone how much they made. We were focused on saving and budgeting rather than how do we actually create and generate more money. We were focusing on how to save money, which there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And part of it is that's how we survive, right? And as a business owner, I have to be aware of those mindsets that I grew up with, because my business actually requires me to adopt a different mindset about money. So my business actually requires me to focus on long-term return on investment rather than focused on and prioritizing reducing expenses. Now that's important, but part of me has to value more than reducing expenses. I have to value a long-term return on investment. So if that means that I actually need to pay $1,000 per month for a social media manager, and the return on investment is actually a conversion rate increase of 1% to 2%, which should actually lead to additional $3,000 to $5,000 per month. And that means that my revenue is growing $3,000 to $4,000 per month. So thinking about it actually in what is the short-term investment rather than an expense, thinking about it as an investment at this point, and really being focused on what is the revenue that this will generate and what's the investment that I'll need in order to generate that type of investment or return on, or that investment or revenue. So I think that was just a part of the mindset work that I had to do of like, I'm thinking of like, wait a minute, I got paid $1,000 like every month. Like, hold on, like say what? Yeah, it's like, that's a lot than some of my bills. However, I think that's honestly a mindset of abundance of like, that's how I need to invest right now in order to multiply in different ways.
And Jermaine, like you getting, like you said, you got videos, they getting like millions of views and stuff like that, but you are the face of the brand, but like, I assume there's a team behind that brand, right? So speak on that.
I was blessed, and I know this isn't everybody's story, but I was extremely blessed to be able to grow with my team. My manager approached me in 2010. He was a student, in Tuscaloosa at the University of Alabama, and I was taking graduate classes and still doing my comedy. And he just had a vision for taking on, all of these artists and managing them. And when I was young in my career, but he felt official because he had an artist. I felt official because I had a manager, and we made all the bumps and the bruises together. 10 years later, we're still together. That's still my manager. He's in LA, and we link up we talk every day. And then my assistants, they were college students at UAB, in 2014, and they were a member of the of AK Side, the business fraternity, and I spoke on a panel, something like this, but in person, because we met in person back in those days. So after the panel, and I was working at 95.7 Jams, the radio station here in Birmingham. They approached me and said, "Hey, we're interested in just learning under you and being assistants. And what do you think?" We met the next day. I put them to work, and they're still my assistants to this day. So that's been a blessing that my small circle, has stayed intact, and we've added, a few pieces here and there. But at its core, it's those three individuals, who I lean on. And now we're able, just like Sister Erica said, now being able or knowing the value of hiring people to make you more money. I don't think a lot of people look at it like that. They look like, nah, I ain't gonna spend this, and I ain't gonna do this. That's an expenditure. No, it's an investment. Hiring a social media person is an investment. Hiring somebody to run that for you, or hiring just somebody to expand your vision. Somebody you can bounce ideas off of, and they can expand them. That's powerful. But a lot of people just holding on to that money that they're gonna lose anyway, because they're gonna have to keep shelling out for other stuff. But it's definitely an investment for hiring graphic artists to do your logos, hiring people to create great videos to put your brand out there. So I would encourage people to do that and build a team. And a lot of people that I've seen, they don't see the value in having a middleman, whether you call it a manager or whatever you call it. You should get to a point where you're not negotiating your own prices. It's going to elevate your value when you have somebody to elevate your prices for you. You'll actually end up getting more money. Before I had a manager, luckily not many people know my first name, so that's what was showing up on my email. So I knew the value back then in 2005 and 6 of negotiating for myself. So they thought they were talking to Antoine, which was really me, but it was another person. So after I got tired of that, I'm glad my manager came along. But having a middle person to negotiate your contracts and paying them 5 to 10% is very helpful.
Right. And then I think it just speaks to a broader thing, going back to the roots of this summit about economic development. The vast majority of Black-owned businesses are sole proprietorships. And we need to get to the place where we are creating jobs for people in our own communities. And so when you pay somebody to be your manager or your social media manager or your bookkeeper or your attorney, like all these people, we need to start circling those dollars into our community, because just like you said, Erica, that $1,000 that you spend per month can generate $5,000 of additional income per month. So we got to start thinking about with an investment mentality instead of, this savings mentality, because if we still just had that savings mentality, we'll continue to be sole proprietorships, and you can't get to $1 million just being a sole proprietor. You got to create jobs and you got to build your team. So right. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and let me add a little bit while we're talking about it, but getting your business legitimized opens up for money too. As far as being, getting your LLC or your DBA, getting everything lined up for taxes. Now you open yourself up for grants, you open yourself up for donations, but a lot of people see that as another expenditure, but getting your paperwork right can also add to your money.
You got to pay some taxes. People don't want to pay taxes, but you got to go give them folks their money. I know Dr. Vaughn, I think you had a question.
I do, and I know that one of our extension agents posted a question to all the panelists, and if Mr. Johnson can repeat his response, but using all panelists and attendees.
Um,
When you posted your website for your shirt, you posted it just to us.
oh,
She couldn't
okay.
see.
I'm sorry.
Right. So I just wanted to say real quick on the chat box, there's, where it says two, it can be all panelists or all attendees. If you just send it to the panelists, just the people you see on the screen are going to get it. We all family here, unless you have something crazy you want to ask the 8 of us that are here, this is an open forum. So please use all panelists attendees. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. But I did have a question. It was something that soon to be Dr. Jordan Thomas spoke on, and a number of you. One, when you're starting out your business, at what point in time do you figure out that you need to build a quote unquote team of people that you're paying sort of an hourly rate? I know we need to have a banker, a lawyer, an accountant, that list. The second thing is, it was mentioned about virtual assistants and assistants. And, a lot of people are talking right now about, oh, yeah, start your business and get a virtual assistant. And you ask them about it, and they're like, oh, they're in the Philippines. And it's like, well, you're a Black business, and I'm giving you money because I'm Black and I'm doing the support, but you're sending the dollars, even though a small amount of dollars. So, like, what is kind of the response to that? Or is there? That was my question.
No, I think that's a great question. So kind of like the artist that I look up to, that he has a operation out in China, but that's to cut costs and to produce, to make his business a little bit more profitable, so he can actually expand and grow bigger and things like that. So it's definitely a business decision, but at the end of the day, you're supporting a Black business of all, and you're supporting someone from your community that's creating powerful images to give back to people and inspire them. So, but to answer your first question, for me, when I started getting a lot of inquiries, when the 2 pieces went viral, I just got overwhelmed. There's a lot of things I didn't follow up on. There's a lot of things that I wish I could have. And just learning more about him and how he's able to take on different shows and different opportunities. He had to grow out his team. He had to develop a process where, look, I have the creative design, and move from an artist that's always doing 100% of everything to coming up with a concept, providing the oversight, and providing the direction for everything that comes out of his shop. So just growing and scaling for necessity is what it is. And you have to figure out how to manage your stress and what you value. Some people don't think he's a real artist. He's a great artist to me. Everything comes from his mind. And I think that's where art is. The concept, the ideas, the innovation that he saw, to be able to trust people with his vision and still come out with top quality work. So yeah, that's my answer in a nutshell. Sorry.
Well, I remember seeing a show on PBS. I don't know if it's the same artist, but it was an African-American artist. And the part that he was outsourcing was like this really intricate background. He was doing the painting itself of the main figure in the painting, but all this sort of flowery and scrolling and paisley or whatever else in the background, he was outsourcing. That much I understand in our space. Like, my biggest question is about like people doing calls, people doing emails, people doing your social media management at like $20 a day or $4 an hour that's overseas.
Did you kind of ask like when you think people should start assembling that type of team for their business?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. I would say do it the day you decide to start a business. Even if you don't have income coming in, you could do percentages on whatever you're selling, or if you're booking or doing shows. I know some industries vary, but I would say do it early. You want your team to grow with your business. The earlier that they're in on your business, the more they'll know your vision. So I know funding can get tricky, but again, look at it as more of an investment to grow and not just as an expenditure. But I would say do it early, very early.
And I'll just add that I think for me, so one, just tangible strategy that folks can do, and I put a little bit of this into the chat, is just do like an informal time study of like literally every 15 minutes that you are doing work in your business, just like capture what is the actual task that you're doing and do that for at least a week or two, and then step back and ask yourself, how many of those tasks or what percentage of those tasks were actually generating revenue directly? And then determine, of the tasks that weren't directly generating revenue, how can those be outsourced or delegated to somebody else? And personally for me, the reason why I'm naming that I now need a social media manager. First, I mean, I can do social media. I enjoy it. I'm a social media person. But when I did my time study for myself and my VA, I am paying my virtual assistant for 40 hours a month. And last month, she spent 14 hours doing social media, when actually I need her to be doing other things. Like she needs to be writing standard operating procedures. She needs to be, sending invoices and communicating with clients. I'd rather her spend 14 hours doing that rather than 14 hours scheduling social media stuff and videos. Like, so that I think was a really helpful strategy for me, and being able to see when a need of a new hire I'm ready and I'm at that point. And when I got to that point for a VA, for me, it was personally of just like, I need to be spending more time on the delivery of service and not the sending the invoice, going back and forth with a consultation time and all the technical things that aren't directly generating revenue.
So I think one of the ways I look at this, and the entrepreneurs that I mentor are asking this, is this the highest and best use of your time? And doing the social media management, doing the bookkeeping, that kind of stuff, you could do it. Like I could change the oil in my car. I know how to do it, but is that the highest and best use of my time? And so if you focus on where your actual gifts are and then outsource or empower other people to do those other things, you'll find yourself scaling a lot faster. We got probably about 5 minutes left. And so I want to make sure that you guys, have mentioned anything that you really want this audience to hear. Looks like we got at least 85 people here. So starting with you, Erica, like your best advice for folks who are listening. We got entrepreneurs here, we got business leaders, and we probably have some students as well. So probably your best advice. And a second thing is, I know we talked yesterday about tools. So even if in addition to the people that you have on your team, there are also other tools that you can use to help you be more efficient in your business. So some of the tools that your favorite tools that might be helpful for the audience as well.
Yep. So quick advice and then quick tools. So the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, has been really, really helpful in my journey. And the reason being is the book basically talks about that anytime you're going to a new level professionally, that mentally your mind will actually take you back to your zone of comfort. So you will self-sabotage yourself, whether it's through thoughts or through actions, as you are growing to a new level personally and professionally. And I think that book is just really helpful in helping you be aware of the internal work that you need to do when you are elevating in your business. So right now, as a young Black woman, I'm making more than anybody in my family. And I am creating a new personal experience, which is scary. And it's also really exciting. And it's requiring a new version of myself that I actually haven't seen modeled. And so that type of interpersonal work is really important. And I have to continue to think about how do I actually not place obstacles in my way of growing and scaling. And then in terms of just tools, I would name Asana is one of my tools that I use between me and my virtual assistant when it comes to project managing, communicating. For those who have personal coaching clients, Dubsado is an amazing system in terms of managing clients. So say it again.
Say that again. You said Dubsado?
Dubsado. I'll drop it into the chat. And then lastly, the tool that I also name is just ConvertKit, is the email marketing system that I use that's been super helpful too.
Great, thanks. Same question, Teddy. I'm sure you're gonna throw out some Microsoft products, but
yeah, no plugs. But yeah, so I do apps. So I have an app called For the Culture. It's kind of like it's a heads up game for Black people. But in order to grow and to do other apps and things like that, I couldn't do all the coding anymore. So Upwork is something that I hire a freelancer to come in, pay him a flat rate, and actually get it done. Fiverr is a great resource if you need a voiceover for something. I was trying to find an animator for a certain project. Everyone that I got recommended in my network was like $5,000 and things like that. I found someone on there for significantly lesser to actually do it and do it on time and on budget. So I wasn't losing money on the project. So yeah, so leveraging those platforms where people are out looking for jobs, you can match, you can talk. I think those are ways to grow your business when you don't have the money to hire a staff and keep them on payroll for an entire month. So,
You know, we would be remiss if we didn't let you talk about that. So talk a little bit more about the app you developed. I think it was in 2017, and then you came out with like a Spanish language version of it as well. So speak on that real quick.
yeah, so For the Culture, that's my baby. I wanted to create an app that celebrated Black culture, and I love trivia and I love game night. So I just married it up. We're in our third year. We're at 40 million gameplays, 700,000 users across the world. It's been a huge success. Right now, we're still trying to grow the Hispanic one called For La Cultura, which is dedicated towards the Latinx community, who I figured had the same experience, same issue. So you're solving the problem of diversity in gaming by targeting a demographic and giving them something to celebrate within their culture. So I appreciate it.
And you did drop some information about that in the chat, right? If you did,
well, yeah, I can. Thanks.
Gotta stay on brand, bro. Okay, and Jermaine, what tools do you use, man? Like, what helps you maintain your sanity and your productivity?
Well, first, Brother Teddy, so you coded your own app, the For the Culture app that I've seen all over Shade Room and everything. You coded that yourself?
Yeah, I did it. I had help on the back end once things started going haywire, but yeah, the initial coding and the pseudo and everything, that's all me.
All right, well, let's talk when we get off of this, man. I got an idea, so let's chit chat. That's the first thing. But my biggest and first tool is books. Always, that's where you got to start. I think, educating yourself, because you're your own tool. So you want to strengthen, you want to sharpen yourself first and foremost. I've got a lot of digital books that talk about growing. That's actually the name of one, Think and Grow Rich with the Internet. There's all kind of books about, and tips about being just a better social media person. Sister Hennessy, that's her real name, Sister Hennessy. She's got a great book that I met. A Black woman who wrote a great book about being an influencer, or tips for influencers. So this great stuff out there. My biggest, most important tool is YouTube University, though. Right. I love to get on and watch tutorials about everything. I've taught myself how to do everything from running my Shopify page, getting better as a graphic designer, everything that I've needed. It seems to be a tutorial for it on YouTube. So I would definitely encourage everybody to enroll in YouTube University. It's absolutely free, and that's the best part about it. But you can learn so much from so many different people. And my last tool, which I probably should have mentioned first, is the Bible, Jesus. We got to make Jesus great again, and not blue-eyed, sandal-wearing Jesus, real bronze, woolly hair, Jesus. That's what I'm getting into. And I know we probably have some people of different faiths here. I follow a lot of Muslim speakers and teachers. They know who Jesus is. So, but I think he's been taken away from us. But we're gonna definitely make him great again in these spaces, and really lean on him, and lean on our spirit, and lean on the trust, because we can't do this thing without God.
Man, that's awesome. We have one last question in the comment box. Have any of you read The Magic of Thinking Big?
The Magic of what now?
Magic of Thinking Big. I haven't either. but maybe we can drop that in the chat and people can check it out. So, y'all, I really appreciate this conversation we had. I feel like we could have went a couple more hours, but Erica, Jermaine, Teddy, really appreciate your engagement. I think you left our audience with a lot of really good tips. And those of you who are watching, make sure that you get their contact information. Follow them on all platforms. Follow me as well at Anthony C. Hood. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the.
One more thing. One more thing, Dr. Hood. So we have met. I didn't want to throw this out, but when you were finishing up your doctoral program at Alabama, I was in Dan Backrock's class, and you used to come in and you used to talk to us. So I remember you all the way from there, and I'm proud to see where you're at right now.
Man, I appreciate that. Man, that's a full circle moment right there.
100%.
Yeah, thanks, Teddy. All right, so Dr. Vaughn, I will pitch it back over to you.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to thank you, Dr. Hood, for your excellent moderation of the panel. I'd also like to thank the panelists, Erica Jordan Thompson, Jermaine Funnyman Phillips, and Teddy, words are moving around, Jermaine Johnson and Teddy Stat Phillips for bringing such wonderful information on social media marketing. And right now we're going to take a quick 5-minute